crime against him.
So, on one hand, you have the slave trade. On the other hand, we have the tremendous civilization that black people had created.
There was a definite crisis of the conscience, because there were white brothers really intensely fighting this thing called slavery, and they were pushing for the liberation of the black man, condemning the trade itself, and freeing slaves in America, and they were torn. And so you can see where the impetus and the need to formulate rationalizations for this developed.
What to do? What are the anthropologists and archaeologists going to do in dealing with this information? And that is what I believe, what's sponsored, maybe consciously in some cases, unconsciously in other cases, what we could call the cover-up. The cover-up of the accomplishments of black people. Chancellor Williams wrote a book called The Destruction of Black Civilization. And in this book he outlined 7 points as to why he feels that there was a cover-up.
Ignore. Just refuse to publish any facts of African history that don't go along with our racial theories.
We need to create a religious and a scientific doctrine so that African slavery won't appear that bad after all.
What we need to do is flood the world with new African histories that contain our European perspectives only.
Start renaming people and places. Replace African names with Arabic, European names. This will disguise their true black identity.
Let's change the criteria for defining race. For example, 1 drop of Negro blood in America makes you a Negro, no matter how light the skin.
Yes, and when reporting ancient African history, reverse the standard. No matter how dark the skin, woolly the hair, or thick the lips, you don't have to be a Negro.
When black contribution to civilization is too obvious, let's find a way to attribute it to outside white influences.
When all the ancient historians contradict your theory, we'll just discredit them.
Chancellor Williams was a scholar, and we feel that his observations have a lot of merit to them. But there are his personal observations. Talk about the rewriting of history. We have to set that in the context that we're talking about during the 1800s is when this started. We're not really talking about contemporary scholars primarily when dealing with this subject. You could not go from Egypt being a Negro civilization to being a white civilization without rewriting some things.
All the high school courses I took and a history course at the University of Maryland, and African American history was omitted. And after I read a book on African American history, I thought, whoa, I've been shortchanged. All of us have. I didn't know that 5,000 African Americans fought in the American Revolution for the freedoms that they didn't even enjoy at the time. I needed to learn more. My textbooks did not give me the education in this area. And the many people I talk to, the same thing happens. There's a real lack of knowledge of Black America.
But what effect did this cover-up and exclusion of information have on the black male?
I began to interview African American men. I wanted men, especially over the ages of 35, because I wanted some men with some perspective. So as I began to talk with men, I began to see the survivor guilt of middle-class blacks, if you will. The issues of trying to assimilate into white America, trying to control the rage, having to work 2, 3, 4 times harder for an African American male, sometimes 8, 9, 10 times harder for an African American female to be just accepted as average. And I began to see that it was not so much looking for forgiveness for the whole issue of slavery, but also just to have these issues in terms of the economic and social issues and the justice issues addressed in a manner that would be allowing everyone to play at the same level.
Our status as African American men is still one of trying to find our true identity.
I think for the most part, many of us are still confused about who we are. As a result of that, some of our younger children are now finding themselves in a hip-hop generation, which is loosely defined as being roughnecks or thugs, and as a result of that, we see that they're searching for themselves through their expression of music and through the art form of hip-hop and rap.
Kids today, the reason they're falling into this whole gangster image is because they don't recognize who they are and where they've come from, and they bought a lie. And somehow we have to be able to address the lie, remove the deception, and lift up a different vision, a different portrait of what young black men and young black women can actually be.
So we have seen how the black man was at the pinnacle of society and how it fell so far. But how does he return to glory? Could it be that slavery served to humble the black man and prepare him for a return to his glorious state?
From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshipers will bring an offering to me.
Let's take the Negro spiritual, for example. The Negro spiritual was born from stories from the Bible. Consequently, go down Moses, way down in Egypt land. Our ancestors, our progenitors and our patriarchs during slavery certainly identified with the people of the Bible. So that's certainly one way. The other way is something mentioned by Dr. Cobbs and Greer. He calls it the Jesus bag. And according to him, the Bible and the Christian faith were a way that African Americans survived slavery in this country. That it were it not for the Christian teachings of the Bible and our faith in Christ, that we as a people would not even survive this peculiar institution called slavery.
Yes, you could hear them singing as they worked tirelessly in the fields under the back-breaking burden of labor. You could hear their joyful voices ringing through the air. Neither oppression, nor hunger, nor the master's whip could stop the slaves from praising and worshiping their God. Black brothers, we are to be a gift to the Lord. In a special way, you are uniquely positioned to be used by God.
At that time that he cuts off the twigs of the tree, representing a discipline of us as a people, he would bring to himself a gift of a people from that people. So in the last days, God is bringing us as a gift to the world, to himself. And the name he uses is Lord of Hosts. Why would he bring a gift to himself of the Lord of, as the Lord of Hosts? Because the Lord of Hosts is his fighting name. That's when he wants to battle. If you look at the wars in this nation and around the world, we have always won battles. So God